General Council meeting online this time. We haven't done one of these fully for a while, so welcome everyone, welcome councillors, welcome council staff. Apologies, we have an apology from Deputy Mayor Rob. Are there any other apologies?
Not that I'm aware of.
Thank you. Someone like to move that apology, please?
Yeah, I'll move, Brown.
Councillor Brown, seconder. Councillor Bellringer, discussion. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 Or raise your hand. Against? It is carried. Okay, opening remark. Councillor Langton.
Thanks, Your Worship. You can probably all guess what I'm going to talk about because you've had your diligent reports in it there, which is probably the easiest. So probably what's preempted this is there's lots of conversation around the farming circles about farmers' input in ETS. So, and there's some interesting stuff happening on organic farms and some regenerative farms, and I happen to be one of those. So some of you probably wonder what you've been sent. So the first two are soil tests, one from 2008 and one from 2021. And interesting, a lot of your farmers will be able to break that down a bit more. But the thing we're looking at is the total carbon. So in as I've written down, so in 2008, my carbon was 10% in my soil, now it's 13%. So as it says, the equivalence to 270 tonne per hectare over the farm for the last 13 years per year. So, and if you look at that also, it says that the New Zealand average in the soil for total carbon is 8.9. So my soil's almost running at 5% more carbon than most other soils. I've also asked my fertiliser rep, is there a ceiling to what total carbon can be in your soil? And there's actually not. So you can keep on sequestering carbon. So if you go to the next printout, it's just a Fonterra send us some what they work out to be what our nitrogen and greenhouse gases emission are. So for my farm, I purchase about 28 kilos of nitrogen a year, and there's 62 that's imported, so that comes in feed and other things like that. And I guess the exported is in milk and meat that goes out the gate. So my surplus is 14 kilos, as it says. So, and I asked at Fonterra what they work on, and the 75th percentile is 137%. So if I give it, I'll put probably a little bit of history of my farm. It's a family farm. It's been a farm in the family for 125 years. And my dad came home on the farm in 75, and he was probably a little bit alternative. That's what they used to be called. He wasn't a big fan of chemical fertiliser, and he used a lot of seaweed, maxi crop, a little bit of DAP, which I say there. So when I came home, one of my friends was a soil rep, fertiliser rep, and he just started a business. So you can see what my fertiliser has been over the last 25 years. So that's a vermicast, lime, and with a mixture of minerals, whatever we need. And in the last 3 years, because our soil's been so good and the biological life is so good, we decided to use a bit of DAP just to encourage a bit more grass growth. So I guess the big question is, probably within that as well, is I was organic for 7 years. Just become too hard, and my production actually dropped by 25% when I was organic. You just haven't got the same tools. So down the bottom, we talk about dairy-based have a what they call a benchmark system, where you send all your paperwork, all your financials in, and see, compare with other people, what your staff and all those sort of bills. So in the last 3 years, my net profit, 2 of the last 3 years, my net profit has been above the benchmark. So yeah, so I guess the concern amongst some of the farmers with the emissions trading scheme coming out is that it's not a fair and equitable model. And at this stage, what I'm saying now is that there's no soil provision in the emissions trading scheme. There's no riparian planting allowance for plants in the emissions trading scheme, and we all talk about cow numbers. If you look back at my farm and my brother's farm, which I've taken over now, we initially milked 550 cows 25 years ago. When I took over my brothers, we were milking 460, and now I milk 380. So in summary, I guess while we understand that agriculture has to play their part in the climate change, we just all sort of want a fair and equitable model going through. And the beauty of New Zealand farming is that lots of farmers farm different ways. And the hardest thing, I guess, in the model is to allow for all of that, because there's 10,000 dairy farmers. So, yeah, so that's just my take. I guess there's plenty of questions. I've opened myself up a little bit here. So, yeah, so this is quite a lot of discussion, as said, amongst the organic farmers and the regenerative farmers. This is quite what's happening on the trends on their farm. Totally unscientific at this stage, because we haven't got models for it, but that's just the trends we're seeing. So, thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Councillor. Very interesting. Farming is different to what it used to be, and certainly as we're moving into getting more carbon neutral, it's making a difference. And I totally agree with the comments about bringing in soil and riparian planting, because that is huge now. So, yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Cool.
Aarun, so I'll get back to my right page. Okay. So just confirming, Sara, there is no open forum or presentation?
That's correct.
Thank you. So we will move on to page 7, the minutes of the last meeting. Someone like to move that they're a true and correct record, please? Councillor Langton, seconder, Councillor Young. Open for discussion. No one's got any discussion on those minutes. I put the motion, they're a true and correct record. All those in favour, please say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Against? It is carried. So moving on now to page 16. Novus Contracting Limited. Someone like to move that we receive those minutes, please? Councillor Young, seconded. Is there a seconder for that, please? Councillor Langton, discussion on those minutes of that 6-minute meeting.
Yeah. Through the chair, just curious to know, I mean, this obviously has been held over because of the tax credits, but what's it actually cost us to keep this Novus Contracting Limited running?
Is someone able to answer that, please? I can't.
Through the chair, I think.
Yeah, you go, Marianne.
Through the chair, I'm pretty sure it's only the director's fees that we're paying at the moment to keep it open. I don't think there's any other costs at this stage. But I can check back on that. Have you got anything to add to that, Waid?
No, that's all I was going to say, is that we'll just have to take that on notice and then come back to you on the exact costs of keeping it going.
The hourly rate for the director's fees are quite high.
Very high. Councillor Filbee.
Thanks, Phil. So is it essential that we keep this this trust open? Do we really need it? And how long has it been, what's the word, sleeping, like the volcano? How many years have we been paying these directors' fees? $250 for 6 minutes.
Yeah, through the mayor as well. I'll have to get answers to all those questions for you and then bring something back to you as well. But it's been, well, Fiona might have some details as well, but it's been going ever since I've been here, that's for sure.
It's been going long.
There is a reason for it.
It's been going longer than I've been here too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I understand that there is a reason, and I mean, I'm happy with that, but is it time for a review?
Just through the chair, I believe it was to do with the tax credits and how we can move those to another company. That was one of the issues, I think.
I know it certainly has
chair.
been discussed. I think each year it comes up, it does get discussed, and it has come back to us every time that it is worth just continuing as it is for what it does for council.
Yeah, through the mayor, we'll have a look at the detail of it again and bring something back to the councillors.
Thank you, Waid. Any further comments or queries on those minutes? If not, I put the motion, we receive them. All those in favour, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Against? It is carried. That took as long to discuss as it did for the meeting. Moving on now to page 20. Minutes of the Eltham Kaponga Community Board. Someone moves that we receive those, please. Councillor Mackay moved. Is there a seconder? Yep. Thank you. Councillor Bellringer, open for discussion. There's no discussion on those minutes. I put the motion that we receive those. All those in favour, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Against? It is carried. Moving on to page 27, minutes of Tahara Community Board, 28th of February. Someone like to move that we receive those, please. Councillor Reid moved. Is there a seconder? Councillor Filbee. Discussion on those minutes. If there is no discussion, I put the motion that we receive them. All those in favour, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? It is carried. Moving to page 33, Taranaki Coastal Community Board, 1st of March. Moved Councillor Langton, second Councillor Young. Open for discussion. There's no discussion on those minutes. I put the motion that we receive them. All those in favour, please say aye or raise your hands.
Aye.
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 Against? It is carried. Moving on to page 39. Patea Community Board, 2nd of March. Someone like to move that we receive those, please. Councillor Rook moved. Seconder, please.
Yeah, Councillor Brown.
Councillor Brown, second. Open for discussion. There's no discussion on those minutes. I put the motion that we receive them. All those in favour, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Against? It is carried. Moving on to page 45, policy and strategy from the 7th of March. We have recommendation there to receive, and there are also 2 other recommendations. Someone like to move, please, the recommendations on page 45. Councillor Bellringer, seconder.
Councillor Mackay.
Councillor Mackay, thank you. Moved and seconded. Those minutes are open for discussion.
Yeah, just your worship. Occasionally I've missed a few meetings, but I was actually at that one there.
Oh, we didn't put you in, Jack.
Yeah, well, you did. I've been as a resolution. There's Councillor Rangiwahia and Rook. So it could have been virtual. I'm not too sure.
We can
It's
follow
okay.
up on that.
Yeah, we can get that corrected.
Yeah, well, you might want to add me to another couple of meetings as well. It makes me look good.
Councillor Filbee.
On page 50, there's a sentence that baffles me, so hopefully someone will be able to explain it to me. It says council officers were commended with regards to the policy containing spiking of the water mains and restriction mode to customers when the abstraction of water supply required limitations as part of the consent.
Fiona would love to talk about that.
No, I wouldn't, because I have no idea what it's going on about. I don't even remember that conversation. I mean, obviously it's about the water supply agreements policy.
Yeah.
It's a pretty tricky sentence, isn't it?
It is a pretty tricky sentence. Council to commend with goes.
I can talk to that. Spiking, because I remember reading that in the policy, and I know all about spiking. Spiking is when you take a large volume of water and then you suddenly stop it straight away, like within a millisecond, and you could have literally like 10 kilometres of water doing 20 kilometres an hour, and you suddenly stop it, and it can stress your pipe network, shorten your pipe lifespan, or rupture pipes. So that's what spiking is. And the other one is when the restrictions are put on by the water take, you're able to take from the river, and that applies to everyone. It's not necessarily the infrastructure, because in the consent, when the river gets to a low flow period, you have to implement restrictions because of the river, not because of your infrastructure.
It's probably just that the sentence is not quite worded clearly, Celine. We can look at maybe rewording it, because I don't recall a conversation about that particular part of the policy, but we can look at rewording it so it makes a little bit more sense, perhaps.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any further comments? If not, I put the motion that we receive those, and also the 2 recommendations there. All those in favour, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Against? It is carried. So moving on to page 52, Tika Hui Mata Ura Ura, 9th of March. Someone like to move the receipt of those, please? Councillor Langton. Councillor Filbee, were you seconding, or did you have a comment?
I've got a comment, but I'm happy to second them.
Thank you. So moved and seconded. Open for discussion. Go, Councillor.
Thanks. I've got 2 comments actually. Just maybe Waid or Fiona, have you got a bit of an update on what the plans are for York Road, or the York Street pump station in Patea? Is there any kind of activity on getting that issue sorted or not? No, you're dealing with Opanaki, but
through your worship, there has been some work ongoing. The Patea area school is a major contributor to the overflow issues when we have stormwater, and their stormwater effectively runs straight into the open wastewater network within the school. So we've been having some conversations with the school about how they might rectify that. We need to sort of ramp them up a bit, I guess, because the largest issue for the school is affordability of actually being able to do the work sooner rather than later.
So is that something that the ministry will fund, or do the school have to raise the money to do it?
My understanding is that they have had some initial work provisionally approved for funding through the ministry.
Okay.
So not the school itself, yeah.
The other question I had was about the conversations with Ngāti Tupaia and the Turuturu Mackay site. I just wondered if anyone could give me a bit of an update on that, because I'm pretty interested.
Yes, through your worship. Reg Koro is quite heavily involved with the hapu there as well, and they are looking to try and obtain funding to do some work at that site. They still need to develop their plans a little bit more, but they've always had a goal of revitalising Turuturu Mackay for their own purposes, plus also potentially for visitors in the future in that as well. There's still quite a bit of work happening behind the scenes, but again, happy to put Reid in touch with you directly, Celine, if you like, to tell you, provide you with some more detail about where they're currently at. Council has set aside a very small amount of funding earmarked for Turuturu Mackay. It's only about $15,000, but there might be at some point in time, they might very well be looking to community grants or those sorts of things to do some more work at that particular site in the not too distant future.
So to Paira the hapu, is there any indication of support from Ruanui, or is it entirely a Tupaia initiative?
Yeah, I don't know the exact answer to that, but I think it's more the latter.
Oh yeah. Oh well, I'll have a chat with Reid. Thank you.
Councillor Beccard.
Yeah, how long is this school? Have we known that the school's causing these issues with the Patea wastewater? Because I believe it's a long time, and we shouldn't be letting them away with it, even if they are a institution which doesn't have a lot of money. There's a lot of people out there with not a lot of money. If they were doing it, we'd be on to them quick smart. So I don't think we should hold it, sit on our hands over this. I think we need to make it happen, because it seems to be getting worse with the overflows at the Patea waste treatment plant going into the river, and that's not good for anyone.
So through you, Your Worship, well, the extent of the issue at the area school has only really come to my understanding and notice just in the last few months. The school is not the only issue. The school is a major contributor, but there are probably lots of private properties in Patea that have similar issues where stormwater is inflowing and infiltrating our wastewater system. We have just engaged a reticulation officer whose part of his job is to work on leakage and loss in our water supplies and also inflow and infiltration in our wastewater supplies. We found it very difficult to fill the role, and in actual fact have only been able to fill it part-time by somebody who's working 3 days a week. So he is working methodically through, where we've got smoke testing, and he can follow up on, the issues and talk to the private residences about how it can be rectified. But again, that team is also down another staff member at the moment. So it's a matter of, having to do the things that are the most urgent first, I suppose.
Yeah, I can understand that. Everyone's struggling for staff, but that's the sort of thing we need to get on and do as much as we can. Thanks, Fiona.
Okay.
Councillor Reid.
Through the chair, back to Turuturu Mackay, there was an issue around mounds of contaminated hospital waste that was dumped there many, many years ago. Is that a council thing or a hapu thing? What was happening with that? Does anyone know?
Yeah, Your Worship, I could perhaps answer that. When Ross was mayor, we basically had $50,000 to, I think it was $100,000 to clear the site. We had $50,000 to clear that, and we had also the support of the Historic Places Trust, but that sort of went by the way. Regional Council had also would come to the party and clean out the existing lake that's there, which is full of willows, etc. I'd close to $1 million set aside. New Zealand Army, they had sort of given us support as well, but I just gave up. It was too hard, and it's all gone. I, to be fair, I can't be bothered sort of going back again over this whole lot and then find what happened was there was a change of the trustees because that, to me, and this is my opinion, it looked like an opportunity for someone to make some money somewhere along the line. And so there's a total change. Most of those people have resigned, as I understand, but yeah, they was pretty close to sort of getting the whole lot across the line. And as I say, we were close to $1 million, and I don't know how you'd go now, but certainly, Diana, that we had it site tested, and I think that was close to $20,000 to site test it. We had to have people on site to monitor the testing. And I can give you all the bits and pieces. I've got them all somewhere. I can send them to Celine. She might be interested in that.
It certainly has been ongoing. Thank you for that, Jack. In a grey area, no one actually knows exactly when. It is thought that it was perhaps dumped in the 50s and 60s, but nothing's definite, and exactly who dumped it, they don't know. I mean, it may have been the Borough Council. No one seems to know exactly how it ended up there, but it has been a saga that seems to have gone quiet.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so any further comments from Tika Hui Mata Urura? If not, I put the motion that we receive it. All those in favour, please say aye or raise your hands.
Aye.
Aye.
Against? It is carried. So moving on to page 58, audit and risk from the 16th of March. Someone like to move we receive those, please?
Yeah, Councillor Brown.
Councillor Brown, seconded Councillor Young. Open for discussion.
I'd like to have added to those present.
Okay, yep. For sure. We're there. Thanks, Sara. You'll sort that. Any further discussion? Councillor Filbee.
Just the reference to the supply issues. Are we seeing any serious implications around that at the moment?
Supply or
anything, but mostly our capital works program.
Yep. Thanks, Fiona.
So through you, Your Worship, yep, we're seeing delays in securing materials. So, for example, we're looking to pre-order the pipe we need for a water main project, because if we wait and let the contractor who's successful in getting the tender then order it, there's going to be another 6-week delay. So we're seeing some things like that, but it's across the whole spectrum. I mean, books are taking longer to arrive. There's issues with paper supply. So in the future, books getting printed will become an issue. So it's right across the board. Yeah, really, but mostly not that we can't get things. It's just that it's taking longer.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion on those minutes? If not, I put the motion we receive them. All those in favour, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Against? It is carried. Okay, so moving on to page 63. Now we're on reports. Delegations register update. We have a recommendation on page 63 that we approve the delegations transferring powers contained in the appendix to the Chief Executive. Someone like to move that, please? Councillor Young moved, or is there a seconder?
Councillor Rangiwahia.
Happy to second.
Councillor Rangiwahia, thank you. That is open for discussion. Councillor Filbee.
Thank you. In terms of the Health Act relevant to water, so is the Chief Executive still delegated to act on the new legislation? I couldn't find any reference to that in the kind of existing documentation. Can someone just explain to me what happens here?
As far as I'm aware, Waid will perhaps comment, but it's business as usual with that at this stage. So it should be normal. Is that correct, Waid?
Yeah, so just check the question again, Celine. Are you asking with the change from the water regulator from health to taumata arawai?
It doesn't. Does that not have any effect?
Yes, it does. So the new water legislation that is in place now that taumata arawai are imposing, we still have to. So we're complying with water regulations that are set on our behalf. It's not a delegation that I have as such. It's regulations that we must meet in terms of water standards and the like, and that as well. If that's what you're asking.
Okay, so it's no longer a delegation anymore. So the Health Act 1956 has been superseded by taumata arawai. And
there may be aspects of that act that may still be in place, but the water regulation components that may have been existing in those in that piece of legislation, and I'd need to check it, but would have been superseded by any powers that through the Water Services Bill that taumata arawai now operate under.
Okay, so these delegations that are listed, HA11, HA12, is that only a small portion?
Yes, it would be.
Okay, that explains it. Thank you.
The thing with taumata arawai at the moment, though, is it's still being built, so we still don't know. They still don't know what all the regulations are going to be. So, yeah, but that's still a watch this space. Councillor Young.
Through you, Your Worship, just querying, so it's the same with the compensation, that's all still under the format of council until till the waters changes.
Correct. Yeah. I should also, just coming back to Celine's comment, just having another good read through those, you know, power of local authority to disinfect premises and those sorts of things. Some of those things are coming out of Liam's area in terms of sanitary homes and the like in that as well. So some of those orders and that are coming through there.
Very good. Any further comments on that report, please? Okay, if there's no further comments, I'm going to put the recommendation that we approve the delegations as listed in the appendix. All those in favour, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Against? It is carried. Okay, so moving on to page 79, we have a request for a new road name. So we have recommendations there that we approve the name Kitea Place for a new cul-de-sac at 130 Manuapo Road. I certainly think that takes away the confusion of the other one where we could have had a Rama Road and a Rama Place, and that the cost of that signage will be met by the applicant. Is there someone happy to move that place name, that street name?
I'm happy to move, Your Worship.
Councillor Beccard moved. Councillor Filbee second. That's open for discussion.
Through you, Your Worship, just who is the developer now? Is that the granted co-design building services? Are they the developer?
I'm not sure if they've taken over from the original person or not. Is someone able to clarify that? Or are they just working for Pat Powell? Liam?
Through the chair, my understanding is that the land's transferred to another owner, Pat Powell kicked off the subdivision, and it's moved to other stakeholders.
Thank you, Liam. Are you happy with that, councillor? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks. I just wasn't sure. I thought this is going through far too smoothly, so there must have been someone else involved.
Any further comments or discussion on that report? So if not, we're going to put the recommendation that we approve Aitea Place for the new cul-de-sac, and also that the developer will be paying for the signage. All those in favour, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Against? It is carried, and we have a new street. That might be our last one until we have our policy in place. Would that sound right?
Through the chair, yes, hopefully.
Very good. Okay, so Sara, can we stop recording, please?
Yes, the recording is stopping now.
Thank you. Have we got a mover for public excluded, please?
Councillor